This is Nicole Sauce from the Holler Homestead giving you a woman's take on the walk towards independence because we're living free in Tennessee.
Good day, everyone. Today is Monday, April 17, and this is episode 32 of Living Free in Tennessee. And I'm actually wondering if I called last week April 17th, because when I went to do the show notes, it said the 17th, and I know that last Monday was the 10th, so forgive me if I got that date wrong. Anyway, the past week has been full of strange misadventures here in the Holler Homestead, and we've done such fun things as demoed a new coffee bean for Holler Roast Coffee, run it by a friend for feedback, found someone willing to help me grow the business by loaning me a few extra roasters, opened our vacation rental cabin for the season, which is always like little surprises come up after you've had a building closed for the winter, gotten the newspaper put to bed, so it's out at the presses, going to be in the mail, and even decided to plant my tomatoes outside of the greenhouse before May 1, which I've never done before here. Usually I'm fairly happy that I kept my tomatoes cozy in the greenhouse until after May 1st, but it just does not look very possible for a sudden freeze. So keep your fingers crossed for me. And as usual, at this time of year, I am so behind in the garden. It's starting to feel a little tense around here in the homestead food schedule, so to speak. And as you all know, my first rule of homesteading is to take care of the top priorities on the list and not freak out too much. And because of my recent drop in income, my primary focus at the moment is building the local revenue so that we can pay the bank man, the tax man, the vet man, the food bill man, and not go down a revolving debt road. So that means that the gardens have taken second priority, unfortunately, even though growing food in the garden keeps our expenses down. If we don't pay the property taxes, we're SOL, so to speak. So it sort of made me think about how easy it is to prepare for some things, but sometimes getting ahead in finances can be really tough. That is one of my weakest points, just as far as preparedness goes in our lives, or it's probably the one, I'm not weak, maybe isn't the right word, but it's the area I need to pay the most attention to because it's the easiest one to ignore, because who wants to talk openly about money, right? So today I thought I would take y'all through my thought process as I decide if we are going to grow the Holler Roast Coffee business beyond its current extremely limited market. So because an opportunity has presented itself, we have to decide, do we take advantage of it? And that's not a decision that I can just make by snapping my finger. So just thought I'd walk you through 5 of the questions I'm asking this week because we need to make this decision before we go on another friend's podcast on May 24th to talk about growing a local market for coffee. If I'm going to expand, then that is a great time to announce a new service line. And really expanding beyond my current maximum level of coffee performance, so to speak, it sounds fun, but that doesn't really mean I should. I need to make this decision quickly and with good information, or I could risk losing my tail on it, which is not exactly what we can afford to do right now. So how does this relate to homesteading and freedom, you may wonder? Well, I like to say that freedom ain't hard, but it does take work. And one of the best ways that we can establish freedom in our own lives is to take care of ourselves without being dependent on other people. And that means, while it's not bad to work for somebody, when you work for somebody, you're dependent on that person's whim, and they can change their mind at any time. And so part of what we've been doing to build resilience into our lives here at the Holler Homestead is develop revenue sources that we're responsible for, develop ways to take care of ourselves that don't depend on somebody else's whim. And that's a key part to helping us feel like we really can take care of ourselves out here on the way out in the country, so to speak. And so that is how it relates to homesteading. If we can take care of ourselves without being reliant on the whim of a corporation we're working for or a government check, then when there are ebbs and flows in our lives, we're at least in control of our reaction to it, and we're able to be more flexible. And I think that's really important on the homestead, because when you do run your own business and control your revenue source, well, if an animal gets sick that day and needs you to take half a day off to deal with it, you usually can figure out how to flex to do that. And if you can flex to do that, you may not lose an animal you would lose if you had to go to a JOB. So that is part of why this has everything to do with homesteading for us. But before we dive in, if you want to drop me a quick note, topic idea, or comment, you can email it to NicoleSauce@gmail.com. Or leave me a comment over livingfreeintennessee.com. I did notice last week, I've gotten a lot of spam comments lately. So like the spammers are getting more clever, and they figured out how to get through my jail system by writing baloney comments. And so I do have to get the ASCII-Met spam filter going this week. I will get it done, although my lovely mother-in-law is coming into town for a visit, which will take a little extra time. I'm really looking forward to this visit, guys. She's not been here for a few years, and pretty much every time Betty and Albert have come, we've been in this weird state of transition in the cabin. So we're always putting them in the guest cabin, but the kitchenette's not quite in yet, or whatever. So this time they get to come stay in our guest cabin, and it is not under construction. And my kitchen in the main house is not under construction. So I'm super excited for the visit and looking forward to taking some time to just hang out with some really good people. Okay, let's move on to our regular segments. The first one is, you know what it is, Eating Seasonally and Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we share what we are eating as it comes to us and talk about ways to use what we store. This week is much like last week as far as what's coming out of the wild plant department of our lives. So salad this week, or last week, so to speak, was my wild mustard, watercress, which is just hanging on, even though the power company completely obliterated 50% of my patch by driving through it with a backhoe. I went further upstream, still able to get some pretty good watercress. Hairy vetch is coming on. We've probably got another week or two of that. The very last of the dead nettle that was growing in the shade gave me its final leaves this week. And coming out of the garden, we've got arugula and baby lettuce. And this yielded a really good Easter salad. A friend of mine invited me to his home to celebrate Easter, and they did a sort of a lunchy thing on Saturday. And I said, what can I bring? And he said, well, bring a salad. I know you've got good stuff going on out there. So I brought an almost exclusively wild salad, made a homemade dressing for it that would match sort of the flavor profile. And then I warned people that this was not going to taste like your granddaddy's salad, so to speak, because a watercress-based salad, and that was the primary ingredient, is fairly peppery like radish. If you do not like radishes, you do not like watercress. If you do like radishes, you will like watercress. So it's one of those things. And then the mouthfeel of hairy vetch and dead nettle it's a little firmer to chew. It's not like store lettuce. And so I just told people, hey, this is a wild foraged salad. It's all safe to eat. I let them try individual pieces if they wanted to. Then I put it all together, and they could make their own decision if they wanted to go for it. The salad dressing I made was grapeseed oil with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then I put in a little bit of dried oregano and added about a tablespoon of fig-infused vinegar and just another tablespoon or two of balsamic vinegar, and 1 tablespoon of a mustard, and I just shook it up real good, and that complemented this salad really well. And pretty soon I will do an episode on salad dressings. In fact, let's do that next week, because I need to do the second installment of our Learn Canning in 8 projects, because it's time to learn how to can fruit before the fruit comes on. Anyway, so we'll do salad dressing with that too. There are a couple of ways you can make salad dressings that really knock people's socks off, and they're so easy to make. The other thing that's coming off the land right now is crappie. All of a sudden, the crappie are showing themselves to us, and by us, I mean Mark. And he caught 7 crappie yesterday. He was a little bummed because we were having a little Easter gathering here. And I mean, he wasn't bummed about the Easter gathering, but he was kind of bummed he had to stop fishing because he probably would have caught his limit of 15. And these are nice, big crappie. So he got back and, you know, my friend and his kids were here at the house doing an Easter egg hunt. And then Mark had the fish. And of course, kids see fish and they're fascinated with them. And one of the children like hung out with Mark the whole time while he cleaned 7 fish, which took some time, and she's only 5, so she was really into the fish. I think we need to take her fishing sometime this year. But as it kind of went on, as the fish were being cleaned, we decided, heck, let's batter them up and fry them up and serve them alongside the Thanksgiving, no, the Easter dinner that we were having. So my friend they were making a ham. They brought the ham down and we just ended up eating here. It was really a good time and the fish was fantastic. There was some roe in there too that I did not eat because I'm not a huge fan of roe. I'll eat, I mean, like I can eat it, but I don't love eating it. But the people who did love eating it got some and it was really good. So one of the best parts about having some flexibility to go fishing on a Sunday night, because it's just a mile from the house, is you get fish as part of your seasonal eating. I also decided that I would learn how to make fish stock. So I took 5 of the carcasses and put them in the crock pot with some other things, garlic and onions, and slow cooked that all night. This morning it's cooling right now, but I'll drain it and add some vinegar and salt and decide if I like how that tastes. And if I don't, then I guess I've just made some fertilizer. I don't know. It's something I've always wanted to try. And I guess I've made quote unquote fish stock when I make a fish stew, but that's usually got all the other things in it. So we'll be making that up, and I guess I could can that if I want to, but I didn't really make enough to can it. I made enough to make something with it or just drink it in mugs. It's supposed to be really good for you, especially if you have thyroid issues. So, and I don't, but I might, like, who knows? But I was just reading a lot about fish stock today. It was kind of fun. In the pantry, here's what's going on in the pantry / root cellar. The potatoes are done. Like, there's still some in there. I need to get them the heck out before they start rotting. They are growing like mad in the root cellar, and we're just done with them. So in the seasonal eating world, this means that you are out of potatoes until the potatoes grow. And our potatoes in the garden are up about, 6 inches or so, but we won't be harvesting those probably till early July or so. We'll see. I've had a lot of bad luck with the potatoes here getting over-rained on. So hopefully this year my strategy of putting them in multiple places in the garden will give me a little better chance of getting some of those. However, what is still storing really well in the root cellar are sweet potatoes. So those, I have a couple rotten ones in there I had to throw out this week, but they're storing really well. And then I still have butternut squash. So those are the 2 things that are storing the longest this year in our prepper pantry. And I'm super excited that we still have them. I still have a whole box of sweet potatoes. So we're just going to be hitting those as hard as we can. And then as far as the canned goods go, we're starting to light into the canned peaches. I'll probably do something dessert related while Mark's mom's in town. And it's just time to eat through them because guess what? It's going to be time to can them again soon. I mean, I guess I could make them into preserves or jams and jellies, but yeah, it's just... It's funny. We usually go through peaches faster than we did this year, but I think my strategy of storing everything very organized but out of sight did not motivate the other person who lives here to have like peach granola breakfast sort of thing. So I think next year I'm going to build a little shelf in my kitchen where I have 1 jar of each kind of thing that we have so that it's a visual reminder, hey, you can have peaches or applesauce or whatever. I like to store them out of the light, which is why they're out of sight, but just 1 jar of something, no big deal. Okay, next up we have getting the gardens ready. This is where we share what we're doing to get our food growing operation up and running. And I have to tell you guys, like, I'm watching all my friends put hydroponic systems up. And a friend of mine just bought a piece of property. I'm going to do a walkthrough with him on that. And he said, but what I'm really interested in is a hydroponic system where the fish poop, like, fertilizes the vegetables. And I thought, okay, I guess it might be time for me to learn hydroponics. And I sort of want one here. And I've made a new friend at Jack Spirko's event, and he's always doing hydroponics. So You may be hearing me talk about hydroponics sometime in the next 6 months. I need to get my hands on some IBC totes. Going to talk to my dad about what they do at his company with their food grade ones that they're no longer using, and see if I can get my hands on some of those or find another good source for them. I don't know. So what we're not doing is setting up hydroponics, but stay tuned. The other thing is trimming and chipping the pathways in the garden so that I don't have as much weed invasion from the pathways. I've always had this dream that I would keep them trimmed and they would not crawl into my beds, or that we would eventually make raised beds, but I just can't see a reason to make raised beds. That's first of all. I've got perfectly good dirt on the ground. Why raise it? However, I do get the creeping grass. Wow, we're having an amazing rainstorm right now. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm sure my dog is hiding behind the toilet because there was thunder, but there's a whole bunch of rain coming down on my freshly planted beans, because that's the other thing I put in this week. And then we're going to put the last of our fruit trees out. So I could probably eke fruit tree planting a little further into the season, but it's getting awful hot in Tennessee to put fruit trees in the ground. And I have some, what are those things called? Not elderberry. Well, I have a couple peach trees. I came home the other night and I looked down and there were like 4 pots, like little teeny pots like I have in my greenhouse with 4 plants sticking out of them. And I was like, why did somebody leave pot plants by my front door? And I just kind of looked at him like, what kind of weird joke is this? And then, okay, you guys can make fun of me because obviously I don't grow it since I don't really know what it looks like. As I look at them closer, I was like, oh, those are like little 2-inch tall peach trees. So I had 4 peach trees dropped off by a neighbor. Going to put those out somewhere where they're shielded from the sun. They're going to want to be under shade for a little while, probably at least the first year, because they're pretty small. Shielded from ducks and chickens and deer and all of the things that will eat them. So we'll get those out. And then the mulberry, I have some mulberry that needs to go out. So that's going to be it on getting the gardens ready. And in fact, we're not going to be getting the gardens ready for much longer here. We're going to be getting our second wave of seedlings going so that when the first wave exhausts itself in July, we can put out more plants. And that's about it. Then we go into preserving, right? So it's about time to tell you guys how I am preserving food. Anyway, update on the Garden Economics Project. I lost $3 on it last week, so I've spent $3 more. We're still under $100 on the garden that we have spent this year. However, I just couldn't resist. My peppers, I got the seeds in late, and there were peppers at the store, so a friend of mine grabbed some plants for me, and then when he dropped them off, he bought some of my tomato plants. So I spent $8, lost, sold another $5 back, and lost $3 in the whole thing. So we're still doing pretty well. Okay, guys, now it's time to move on to the main topic of the show. And this is 5 questions to ask when it's time to grow your business. And the reason I thought we'd talk, well, first, selfishly, I'm thinking of making the Holler Roast Coffee business into a bigger percentage of our income. And that's because I've had a couple things happen. One, I've started developing a fairly loyal set of people who just love Holler Roast Coffee. And I know they really love it because they are continuing to order it on a regular basis. So I was kind of thinking of launching a subscription service for coffee so that you just can sign up and it show, X number of pounds a month show up, custom roasted, once a month. And I've had some really good opportunities to promote the coffee. The market in our area, I've been working on building it for years, and it's finally starting to come into its own. And that means that there are people willing to spend the money it takes on a custom roasted micro batch of coffee because they just understand that fresh is better. Freshly roasted and roasted with care is better than something that's been around for 6 months. And that's the obvious truth of the whole thing. So it's funny because I sat at a workshop a month ago telling people this is how big my business is going to get, and that's it. Because in order to go to the next level, I have to go much more monetarily invested into the whole company. And I ought to play a segment of that here because it's like famous last words, because the 5 questions I'm going to talk about today, the first one is, do I love this enough to really do it? Do I love this enough to really do it? And as it turns out, I really love roasting coffee, guys. Like, I did this presentation, and as I'm standing in front of these people, I'm thinking, I had no idea I loved coffee this much until I stood in front of this room talking about it. And the funny thing is, I was talking about limiting my business when maybe I shouldn't. So I think that's true with any business that you're going to grow is, are you growing it because you love money and it's going to bring you a lot of money? Okay, that's one thing to do. I mean, if that's what your motivation is, that's great. But when I think about building a lifestyle and building a lifestyle business, I need a business to bring in a certain amount of money, but it doesn't have to be billions of dollars, right? So I want it to be something that allows me to have the lifestyle I love. And I really love roasting coffee. So I know I love roasting coffee. I think it shows in the product that we deliver to our customers. And part of do I really love doing this is, am I willing to tell you the story of my coffee day after day after day? Because when you're marketing a product or marketing your business, the best way to do that is to tell your story. And you have to have a good story to tell. So my coffee is chosen once a year. And in fact, this is the time of year I choose the bean. And I taste many, many different kinds of coffee from all over the world until I find the one I like the best. And then I get all of those beans that I can, because what happens with when you're buying direct from the farm, what happens is they run out, right? You can't just continually adjust your blend to be something, from multiple farms. They're not like big producers. I'm buying from small farms to begin with. They use organic practices. The farmer is getting a living wage from selling his crop or her crop. And I'm choosing which one I use, and I buy it until it runs out. And because of that, I'm also limited on how much I can roast because of the equipment I have. And that means that if you buy my coffee, you're buying something that is a finite resource. And that means, you can't just get it anywhere, right? It's Holler Roast Coffee. I've sourced it from one farm. I've bought all the beans. They're in storage here. And I can produce a certain amount of it every month. And so people on my subscription list get the Holler Roast, and people not on my subscription list, it's while supplies last. And when they're out, when I've reached that number for the month, then we're done. And that's kind of cool. I never thought about it as cool. I was a little annoyed, originally, but it is kind of cool. It's a premium coffee that if you want it, you got to buy it, right? So that's part of the story I'm telling, but the other part of the story is why I even started roasting coffee to begin with, which is it was because I moved to Tennessee and there wasn't much good coffee here. And like the best I could get my hands on where we lived without driving for hours was Starbucks. And anybody from the Pacific Northwest like I am knows that Starbucks is palatable to some, but it's not the best coffee. And I was just used to having unlimited access to really good roasters, and we just didn't have that here. So one day, ran out of coffee. I was going to have to drive for flippin' ever to get coffee, and I started looking online about like green bean storage, because you can store green unroasted coffee beans for longer than you can store roasted ones and still maintain that freshness, because it's the freshness after roast that's most important. Although if you store green beans for years and years and years, they totally get this weird chalky flavor, so don't do that. And I thought, well, it will take me less time to roast coffee at home than to drive to the store. And that's when I started roasting it for us. And then people started coming over and tasting the coffee and liking it, and I started giving it to friends and family. And then from there, it just grew into the Holler Roast business that it is now. We're still a cottage food business in Tennessee, but if we want to grow, we're going to have to get out of the cottage definition. So the second question that I ask is, how does this pencil out as I grow? And this involves like looking at how much more of my time is it going to take, and do I have enough time to do it? what is the extra licensing and inspection requirements? Like, what are the things that are going to come up? How much profit am I making per pound? And if I grow, I mean, obviously there are increased, like I have an increase in tax expenditures, licenses and fees. I have to build facilities that are more, well, that they're inspected. I have to have the inspector come out. Like, they can come out anytime they want, right? Like, what are all of those things? And originally when I went through, I estimated I was going to have to put in about $20,000 to go to the next level, but some things happened recently that have lowered that number enough that I can honestly look at expanding the business. Not the least of which is that to have an inspected facility in Tennessee does not require me to also build an on-site bathroom. And that was the expense I was really worried about, because, a hand washing station is one thing, but putting a whole bathroom in an outbuilding that nobody's ever going to use is a little bit of a struggle. So what I have going for me here is that my father works in the commercial food industry, and one of his specialties is compliance with the Food Safety Modernization Act, which is a piece of crap act that's designed to keep small producers like me from ever being successful at all. But the good thing is he knows what I need to do, and he told me he'd help me out. And because of that, the licensing became a lot less of a research project and a lot more of somebody's already done that research for me and can help. So I'm able to, and a big part of that expense was going to be to buy a commercial roaster, because we're looking at like $13,000, anywhere from $6,000 to $13,000 just to get the commercial sized roaster. And I don't even know if I'm going to like my coffee in the roaster. So I was looking around at, other coffee roasters in the area who might let me try my beans on their roaster and might show me how to use it. And, somebody, and there's a local roaster here he's like I am. He thinks, like the rising tide lifts all boats. And he has just upgraded to a commercial roaster, and he has his 2 smaller roasters available. He's not using them. He told me I could use them for free he's going to eventually donate them to a mission in South America. But until he does that, I can use them. And he said, and learning how to use these roasters, which are infrared roasters, teaches you what you need to know to work a commercial roaster. So I am heading out this week to go meet with this guy. I had a great conversation with him on the phone, and just learn how to use those roasters. And I'll be starting to roast both with the roaster I have now, and then that triples my ability. Like, that just triples my volume right there. And that's a step between I have to sell 1,500 pounds of coffee a year and the current, like 500 pounds that I'm doing now, right? So I don't have to go up another 1,000 pounds. I can double and still handle it. And that's really cool. And frankly, I'm so thankful to have that opportunity, because it allows me, instead of spending $20,000, to spend like 5 or 6. That's huge. That actually means I might be able to make this pencil out. So, and I say might because I haven't done my spreadsheet. I will be doing my spreadsheet this week. So, and as I said, it's just the 5 questions I ask, or I'm asking myself. And it's because I've got a couple people willing to help me get over the hump financially too. And I didn't want to accept the assistance without a business plan. So we're just putting that together, because I have a different business plan right now. This is the grow plan. And I've got to look at these things and make sure that I'm not being irresponsible. Number 3 is, how am I going to, this is probably the one I should have asked first, but do I love this is a good question. So how am I going to expand sales? Is my market growing, or am I planning to increase market share in my existing market? So what I mean by that is, okay, great, I can produce more, but can I sell it? And this is the place where I'll be spending the most time thinking this time. In order for me to sell more, I don't think I'm going to be penetrating the local demand all that much. I might double my local distribution. But what I am going to do is put an increased focus on the the mail order part of the business, because there are a number of people who love handcrafted micro roasts in the country, and I think I can reach them. And the ways I can reach them is, well, through this podcast, by going on to other people's shows. And I've been invited on a couple shows just to talk about the coffee business and some other things we're doing here. I can advertise. I've been looking at different advertising avenues. And then I'm going to have to relaunch hollerhomestead.com, which is the farm website I've been ignoring for 2 years. And actually right now you can already order coffee on it because I got that done. But that's, these are all ways that I can start selling my coffee. And I have to tell my story. Okay, so telling my story here on Living Free in Tennessee it's good. Like, y'all listen to it. And we're all kind of on the same, we're either homesteading or we're going to be homesteading, or we're looking at different ways to build resilience in our lives. Like, you guys are a great community that have, kind of started listening to my story. And that's one way. But there are a lot of people who like micro roasted coffee that is fresh, who don't give two figs about homesteading or ducks or growing our own food or how we build resilience into our lives, right? And so the Holler Homestead brand is a way for me to tell the coffee story without requiring you to, love homesteading or love, people who like micro roasted coffee probably like that other people homestead, but they're not like as into this is how we learned how to build a hydroponic system from David Siegler or whatever, right? Or how we built an off-the-grid pump house by having our buddy Sean over. The people who like micro-roasted coffee are going to want to know a little bit more about the farms they come from, how the beans have been handled, what our roasting system is like, what the flavor profile is. They're probably interested in recipes with the coffee. Oddly enough, I've been developing coffee recipes, so that's kind of fun. But they might want to know how to, make their own Kahlua. There's all sorts of different things that I may or may not talk about here, but I will definitely talk about on the Holler Homestead site. So those are some of the ways I'm looking at expanding my sales. The other piece is going to be cold calling, guys. You cannot sell your stuff without reaching out to people and telling them you exist. And so I've been working on some strategies for that. I'm not sure if I honestly want to sell wholesale to restaurants. It's a way I can get my name out there, but when I sell wholesale, I do not make the same amount of profit per pound as I do when I sell direct to consumer. And with the internet being what it is, direct to consumer is actually a pretty good route to go. So I have to decide to what extent I'm willing to put Holler Roast Coffee in stores or restaurants, because they always insist on a discounted rate. And frankly, I can't afford that at our price point right now. So if I do that, that's a marketing expense at that point. And I'm doing it to get the word out. Well, then that means I need to be selective about where I do that. So we'll see how that goes. There's also, interestingly enough, a subscription service that runs they do these baskets of different things that are looking to add our coffee as one of theirs. Same thing. That is a marketing expense for me, because by the time I'm making like $2 a pound or something by the time I give them a discounted rate. And if you ask me if I want to do this for $2 a pound of profit, the answer is I don't love it that much. I do love it, but I don't love it that much. So I got to pay my own bills. Anyway, so that's question number 3. And I already knew I wasn't just going to grow market share locally. I'm going to have to increase the market I'm targeting. Number 4, why am I better than my competition? And how are they better than I am? That's a hard one, guys. But it's important to know the things like why. What about Holler Roast Coffee is better than any other roaster? Well, I've just finished interviewing 4 of there are 3 other micro roasters in our area. One of them I'm better than theirs, probably not from roast quality, but because I love coffee more than they do. And so I'm more motivated to have that standard roast that you can depend on over time, that is hand done and done with care at a high enough volume that you can actually get your hands on some and it's not just completely out. This particular one is kind of overcommitted and doing a lot of things, and I just don't think that they're trying to grow. So that's how I differentiate from that one. Other than that, I think we are similar. Like, how are they better than me? I think they might, well, they are better than me because they can do a little more volume per roast, and they've already developed a reputation in the area. The other roaster in the area, how am I better than they are? It's because I choose the one bean, and it's a premium bean, and we do that, and we do it well, and we roast to the roast of that bean. Does that mean I'll never do more than one bean? No. But right now, my bread and butter is Holler Roast Coffee. And the Holler Roast is a dark roast. It's got a bold flavor, but not super bold. It's, somebody was asking me about that the other day, and that's, medium roasts actually often have a more bold flavor than the dark. But the dark roasts tend to have a lower acid count than the medium roast, and that means that people with sensitive stomachs like I have can drink it, where in me drinking a medium roast I have to be careful with that. So, but it is a rich flavor. It's got vanilla overtones. Like, that's my sweet spot, is this bean. Well, how are they better than I am? Much better at, this person has well-established contacts in the area and a reputation, and they've developed their market to tap into, I'm going to call it the off-pure lovers of coffee. And these are the people who like your flavored coffees, right? Like, so they can do, infuse it with hazelnut or whatever. I don't do that. Do you know why I don't do that? I don't do that because it's gross. I could learn how to do it. Maybe someday I will learn how to do it. I don't know. But I don't think that's the best way to enjoy a coffee bean. I'm a purist. I'm a snob about my coffee. So I might have to let go of that as we grow the business. I'll learn over time. But that is how they are better than I am. They are tapping into a market that I'm not even trying to go after. So, and the third one, I haven't tasted their coffee yet, but it's... how they're better than I am is that they already have an established market for a different product. So their brand, they just have better brand recognition. And they're able to tell that story to more people just out of the chute. Like when I tell my coffee story, I'm telling it to 4 people, they're telling it to 40, right? So that's how they're better than I am. How I'm better than they are is mine tastes better. Because I know the way they're roasting the coffee, and I know that it adds a chalky flavor, and I don't think that chalky flavor is good. So anyway, these are things you need to look at. Now, those are just my local competitors. I need to look more at the mail order side of things as well, and haven't done it yet. So it's time for me to look that over. Why am I doing this step? The reason I'm doing this step is as I tell my coffee story, I need to focus on my like sweet spot where I'm better than everybody else. Right now, where I'm probably the sweet spot is it's that bean I've chosen. And if you do not like what I like, then you're not the one for me, sort of, so to speak. So that is my sweet spot. And as I look at that sweet spot, 2 things have to happen. 1, I have to decide, do I keep that sweet spot or do I expand to have a broader appeal to different people who don't like coffee, who tastes how I like my coffee? Or 2, do I just stick there and do the best I can do? Right now I'm leaning towards option number 2, but time will tell as I get into this. Okay. Question number 5, and the last question for the show today is, what are the do or die items that if they're not in place will make me pull the plug on the expansion? So this is super important to think about in advance, because otherwise you find yourself 2 years later having lost your butt because you didn't pull the plug when you should have. And so what are those signs that things aren't going well? First one for me is if I can't pass the facility inspections in the first 2 goes, then I need to really think about if I'm capable of expanding Holler Roast Coffee or not. And I will probably pull the plug because I know the inspector in the area, not a mean person. So if the inspector has come out once and told me what I need to do, and then comes out again and it's still not good enough, something's wrong there, and what's wrong is probably with me in this case. Now, if the second time it's a different inspector and I don't pass again, okay, I'm willing to look at that. But I think if I can't get my stuff together well enough to pass inspection after, 2 inspections, then I've got to really think about if I'm serious, because sometimes a sign of if you're serious is not getting your homework done. Another thing is I haven't established this benchmark yet, but if sales don't reach X in 6 months, I pull the plug. This one's really important because it's easy to be like, well, I'm kind of making it. I need to do more than just kind of make it if we're going to grow Holler Roast Coffee. I need to turn it into my income. So if it's going to become my income or half of my income, then it has to reach a certain number of profit, or I'm just running around like a chicken with my head cut off and not making enough money to pay the things that need to be paid. So that's a pretty important one. Third one, if I hate my life for longer than 2 months because of this business, I should pull the plug. I may not pull it right away, but I should pull the plug. Now, this goes back to question number 1, do I love this? Well, there are things that happen in every business where you just have to push through. It's become unpleasant for whatever reason. And I think that's part of growing any business. It just gets busy and you're like, I don't have the freedom to see my friends because I have to roast coffee. Okay, some of that's okay. But if I'm hating my life day after day after day after day for 2 months, I'm pulling the plug. Because you know what? I tried to push through on something like that for 3 years once. And it still failed. So why do that to myself again? So that's, I've got to see some happiness or this isn't worth doing. I'm building a lifestyle business here. And then the other thing that could make me need to pull the plug is a gross increase in coffee bean costs. So if coffee beans go up like 40%, I'm screwed. If they go up 40% and all over the world, perhaps I'm not screwed. Perhaps I can increase my costs. But you know what it means if coffee beans go up 40%? It means there's something much bigger going on, and it's very likely people will not be able to afford coffee at the same rate as they could. So if I see coffee beans starting to go up dramatically in just, in a short period of time, like a year, I'm probably going to pull the plug. Anyway, those are the 5 questions to ask when it's time to grow. There are many more questions you should ask before you decide if you're going to expand your business, but those are the first 5 I ask myself, and I thought I'd share them with you. Let's just go through them again. 1 is, do you love it enough to really do it and to tell the story over and over and over? 2, does it pencil out as you grow? Because as you grow, sometimes you reach this point where things cost more than they did at a smaller size. So make sure it pencils out, put it into a spreadsheet, see if the math works. If you can't do that, I don't know why you're running a business. You got to make sure it pencils out. Most important thing. 3, how am I going to expand sales for an increase in volume? Is my market focus going to be on increasing market share in my currently defined market, or am I expanding my definition a little bit so that I can kind of keep the same market share but in a bigger area? 4, what about me is better than my competition, and where are they better than I am, and what can I learn from that? And then 5, what are the do or die items that if they're not in place will make me pull the plug? Well, thanks for listening to me as I thought through if we're going to expand Holler Roast. I will probably give an answer to that very shortly. I kind of know which direction it's going, but because I haven't done my spreadsheet, not going to answer that yet. Next up, we have stories from the Holler, and I only have 2 to share with you this week. Number 1, we had a visit from our friend Brian, who did that song I played for y'all, a couple episodes again, called Divided We Stand, or Together We Fall, Divided We Stand. And it was a great song all about why differing opinions and allowing them to happen in our country is part of what makes the country great. Well, he stopped by this week, and we've sort of developed this trend with Brian. He comes here. If nobody's using a kayak, grabs a kayak, goes down to the river, goes fishing, comes back, occasionally slides us a fillet or 2. And he came back and like his eyes were lit up like a kid at Christmas. And he was like, come see what's in the bucket. He had caught his limit of crappie. And so it's kind of sparked a daily crappie fishing week here at the Holler, and it's a good time. So part of the fun of living in the country are the people who just stop in day after day. And the second one is a story from the Holler is all about our vacation rental. As I said, we opened it up this year, and I just want to thank the little voice in the back of my head that realized it was 88 degrees outside and I had forgotten to put the window unit in our vacation rental. So it is air conditioned, but it's through window units. And I just didn't even think about it because we usually don't put air conditioning in until after May 1st. Also, which is about when we put the tomatoes out. But I was like kind of sitting in the house. It was getting kind of warm and I thought, oh no, the people are down there and they don't have any AC. So I texted the people who were in my cabin. I said, hey, how's the temperature down there? Because I just realized I didn't put the AC units in. They knew they were the first for the season and they've been here before. And he wrote back and said, it's really funny. I was about to ask you where the thermostat was because it's getting kind of hot down here, especially after being out on the river all day. So this is a really important thing about if you're going to do like Airbnb or a vacation rental. Always be thinking about the comfort of your guests. If I had not proactively reached out to them, I have a feeling I would not have gotten a very good rating. He probably would have sent that text. He might not have, though. Like, people are sometimes afraid to ask you for their comfort. And so, just remember to reach out, because he was able to tell me he was a little too warm, and I was able to plop an air conditioner unit in and cool that puppy down. And I got a 5-star rating, and he was happy, and they were not boiling their buns off for the night. I need to make a better checklist for after winter, by the way, obviously. So those are our 2 stories from the Holler. There's been a lot of other things going on, but we've already talked to you for almost an hour now. So I think we'll just wrap up for the day. And so with that, remember, if you like the show and want to support us, you can do it over a marvelous cup of hand-roasted coffee, Holler Roast Coffee, which you can get at livingfreeintennessee.com. Just click on the coffee link there. And I have a little foreshadowing to do. So we've been talking for a while about adding some premium content to the Living Free in Tennessee, and it looks like we're going to be able to launch in the next few weeks. So pretty soon, if you want to show your support of the show and get access to things nobody else gets access to, we'll be launching a member section, and I can give you extra content there. I'm deciding if it's going to be an extra podcast every week or more. We're definitely working on a couple of books. Like, I just put together how to start your coffee roasting guide, just for people to use who want to do their own home roasting. And that will probably be the first downloadable manual up there. But we'll also be adding video content about like the how to can in 8 projects and some other things. And hopefully over time can bring some other partners on board in the membership section to give you good deals and good ideas. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for listening to today's show. And remember, it's up to you to go out and make it a great week.